What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the second episode of the How to Build a Video Game from Scratch tutorial. Currently 6:19 in the morning. I've been up for the past couple of hours feeling like absolute crap, so if you hear that in my voice, I do apologize. But since everybody's asleep, I figured it was a good time to go ahead and get this recording done. If you've not yet watched the first episode in the series, you definitely need to do that. I'll put a link somewhere and click on that and watch that first. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in, open up Unreal Engine. Okay, so to start things off, we're going to do a little error fix here that we had at the end of the last episode. What we're going to do is go into CB Camera, and we're going to add this capsule collision into the default scene root, and we'll have that at the top spot. And then on that capsule, over here in the properties panel, under collision, we're going to block all. Then we're going to do the same thing for our ground tile. So under the box collision here, going to be block all. Town hall collision. On the box collision, also block all. Sorry guys, looks like my camera died, so we're just going to proceed like this for right now. Anyways, you're going to go into your main scene here, select on your camera, and then all we're going to do is pull the default scene root up where it's above each of these tiles and our building. And if you want to test that out real quick, you can just click play, click on the screen, and you can see we can move around and go over these tiles without actually falling through, which is nice. Okay, so now we are going to do a few things here. We talked last time about how placing these tiles manually would be a pain because you'd have to like line it up, and there'd be so many that you'd have to do here. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take each of these, we're just going to remove them from the scene. Then we're going to open up our content drawer. We're going to go into base blueprints and CB game mode. And again, if you ever get the screen, just click open full blueprint editor. Okay, so a couple things. One, we are going to create a function. So just click this plus button, and we'll call it spawn ground. Okay, so off of this spawn ground, what we're going to do is drag it out, do a for loop. It's going to be a little annoying to find because Unreal Engine likes to default to the for each, but we need the for loop, which is down here. So what we're going to do, what this basically does is it goes a certain number of times through this loop. So the first index, we're going to put 1, and then the last index we'll put something like 100 for now. Should be fine. Then off of this loop body, we're going to drag it out, and we're going to do another for loop. For loop. And we'll keep this the same, so we'll do 1. Then what we're going to do is off of this index of the for loop here, we're going to drag this off. Multiply node. Do something like 200. We might have to come back and like make changes on this. And then off of this multiply node, we're going to do a subtraction node. Something like percent. We're going to do the same numbers on this guy here. So this for loop, off the index, do a multiply. This will be multiply. Then off this, we'll do a subtract. Something like that. Then if you right click up here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a make transform node. And then on this location, we're going to split this up. And then on the X, what we're going to do is drag off of this 10,000, the subtract node here, and drag that into the X, and you'll get this conversion node here that just takes it from an integer and turns it into a float, basically. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So off of this subtract node, drag it into the Y. Something like that. What's the Z? Let's go into our main. 0, so let's make it like, we'll do, and that should be fine. Then off of this for loop, on this loop body, we're gonna pull it off. We're gonna do spawn actor from class. And the class we're gonna select, and it'll be the ground tile blueprint that we made. And on this make transform, we're gonna take that and we're gonna drag it into the spawn transform section. Then I'm gonna make a variable. So we're gonna come over here to this variable section and click the plus button, and we'll make a variable called ground tiles. And this will be an actor variable. I guess more specifically, it'll be our ground tiles VP. So if you type in on this type here, if you type that in ground tiles or whatever you named your actor, click that, we'll pull up here, and then we'll do it an object reference. Then in the right hand side, the details panel, under the variable type, on the right hand side, instead of making it a single value, we're going to make it an array. Then we're going to click on this, drag it out, we'll get ground tiles. And then what we're going to do is off of this spawn actor node, we're going to, I guess we'll connect it here in a second. Off of the ground tiles, pull it out, click add, then connect the spawn actor to it. And then the return value of the spawn actor, we're going to plug into it. Cool, and so that's pretty much it. So what this is doing is when this function is called, it goes through this loop 100 times. And it gets values based on these calculations, and then puts them into this transform node, and then they spawn an actor, the actor being our ground tile, at whatever point that it's currently at. So on the first index, you multiply that by 200, subtract 10,000, that's the X value location, and same for the Y value here. So it's just going to go through each of these 100 times and spawn a bunch of our ground tiles at this location. And then it adds each of the ground tiles to our ground tiles variable, which is going to come in super handy for accessing all of the ground tiles that we have in the game. Okay, so then compile and save that, and then go back into the event graph. And then in this event graph of our CB game mode, off of event begin play, the first thing we're going to do is spawn ground. Call this function spawn ground every time the game starts up, and that will spawn our ground. We'll compile and save that. And now when we click play, we should get a map filled with our ground tiles. Be the case. And move to the edge of the world here. Boom. Nice. Okay. We can't tell if these are like overlapping or anything just based on this, so what I'm going to do is fool around with the numbers just to make sure that we've got it kind of where it's nice and clean. So go back into CB game mode, and under spawn ground, I'm going to turn, like, instead of 200, let's call it 300. Spacing between our tiles here. Okay, so that definitely provided some spacing. Yeah, and it looks like these are each 100, so I think that 200 is correct. So we'll go back here and put 200 again, 100 again. No. File and save. But now what we need to be able to do is spawn our town hall by ourselves, like without actually just like physically going into the main scene and just dragging it out so that the player will be able to place it themselves. So what we'll need in order to do that is a UI for the player to interact with. So what we're going to do is go into the content drawer, and under, let's do it in the content folder. We're going to right click, new folder, and we'll call it UI. It'll be like all of our like main UI is. To go into the UI folder and then right click, and then under the user interface section, select widget blueprint. We'll do a user widget, and we'll call this the build UI. And then you can double click that to open it up. First thing I like to add is a canvas panel, so we'll put a canvas here. And where this arrow is should be like your entire screen size here, so that's fine, we'll just leave it like that. Then within the canvas panel itself, we're going to search for a vertical box. Add a vertical box to the canvas panel. It's like all the way over here. What I'm going to do is on this position X here, we're going to change that to be 600. And then the position Y, let's change that to 100. And then the size on the X and the Y, let's 100. 100. Yeah, that's probably fine. 700. And then on the size Y, we'll make that something like, yeah, that's probably fine. Okay, so we've got our vertical box. So within the vertical box, what we're going to do is add a border. And then in the border, well, we're going to click on the fill section. And that's just going to fill this entirely. And we're just going to use this as our like background color. So under the appearance section of this, I'm going to change it. I like to do like something like black, but I like to make the alpha channel partially see-through, like something like that. At 0.5. Alright, then within that border, we're going to do a horizontal box. Just like that. And that horizontal box, we are going to center that. Actually, let's put it at the top. Yep. And then we'll do just a text box here within the horizontal box. And this will just be like our title. Call it like old menu, or change the text value. You'll just go down here. Boom. So now we've got our little build menu. And what we're going to do is on this, we're going to add another horizontal box to the border, or to the vertical box rather. Okay, so slight correction here. We're going to move the border into the canvas panel actually, and we're going to change this to be equivalent with like where our vertical box. That and 700. Ooh, that's, there we go. Okay. So then we've got our vertical box also within the canvas panel, and then within the vertical box are our two horizontal boxes. And then the first horizontal box will contain our build menu title. Then within the second horizontal box here, what we're going to do is add a size box. And then within this size box, I'm going to add button. I like to use size boxes just because they're just makes it easy to kind of like size up how you want the button. But on that size box, we'll center it up. Click fill, that it actually centers. And also on the size box, on the height and width override, we're going to check those, and I'll make it something 150 by like 100. Yeah, something like that. Now we've got our little button here. Although I don't like color and opacity. Go on the background color, we're gonna change that. I'm just gonna make that totally clear by hitting 0 on the alpha value. And then within this button, we'll get a text box. And we'll put that within the button. This block, we'll call it. Then the text value, we'll put Town Hall. Be our Town Hall button. The text is a little bit too big, so let's, under font here on the size, you can change that to 10. Seems a little, 15's probably. Okay, so this is our first basic UI here. We're gonna compile and save that. Okay, so now we need a way to actually make this build menu pop up. So what we're gonna do is go into our content drawer and the base blueprints and get our CB controller. And we'll need to add something in here. I guess before we do that though, we'll need to go to our base blueprints input and need to create a new input mapping. So for input action, not mapping, action. So then here, we'll rename it to something like build menu. We'll open that up. It'll consume the input, and it's just a digital bool value type. We don't have to do anything. Save that. Then we'll open up our player input mappings, and we'll add another mapping. Here we'll do build menu, and we'll click on the keyboard, and I'm going to set it to B, but feel free to set it to whatever it is that you want it to set it to, and then you save it. Then go back into CB controller, and we're going to right click and just start typing like build menu. Should start to see something. So you want the the enhanced action events. Boom. And then on the triggered section, we're going to pull that off and we're going to create widget. And within this class, we'll select our build UI. Then from this, we're going to drag out and do add to port. And the return value of our create build UI widget code, we're going to put that into add to viewport section. So yeah, what this does is basically when you click whatever the build menu action is connected to, it will create build UI widget and it'll add it to our viewport. Pretty straightforward. I guess let's make sure that works. So if you click play, and click on the screen, hit B, build menu pops right up. Good stuff. Cool. So now we need to actually make that button do something though. So what we are going to do is go into ground tile DP, the blueprint of the ground tile itself. And if you get the screen, just open full blueprint editor. Okay, so within our ground tile blueprint class, we are going to add a couple of variables. They're both going to be booleans. So the first one we'll call it is building, and the second one we'll call built on. File and save. Alright, and then within our blueprint graph editor thing here, we can delete the event tick. We won't need that. We're not going to use event play just yet, but you can leave that up there. It's fine. On this event actor begin overlap, you can delete this one as well. Then what you're gonna do is right click and do event actor begin cursor over to this event right here. What we're gonna do is drag off this and we're gonna do a branch node. This is basically like your if statement. But then we're gonna take this branch and we're gonna base it on the is building. Just get is building, we'll plug that in right there. And if we are building, if that is true, then we're going to do another branch node. And we're going to base that one on built on. Get built on, plug it in. With those set up, let's hop back over to our build UI. And then in the graph section here, what we're going to do, actually go back to the designer and click on this button, our town hall button. Scroll down to the bottom. Actually make it a variable. Call it button. Variable, named it town hall button. Then you scroll down here and we've got this events section now, and we're going to do on clicked. Add on clicked. Okay, so from this on clicked, what we're going to do is remove from parent. So, and that'll be the self. So basically when we click the town hall button, it's going to remove the UI from the screen. We can actually place actor. Then from there, we will get all actors of class. Call it, we'll get our ground tile actors. Then on this out actors, pull that out and do a for each loop. Plug that in there. And then what we will do is from this array element section, we'll set is building to be true so that the game knows we're building something. Then off of this, oh wait, we actually need one more variable in our ground tile blueprint. Go back into there, add another variable, and I'm going to call this one building selected. And it will be of type building base. And it'll be a class reference. Compile and save that. And then go back into our build UI, and then we're going to drag off of this array element to set building selected to be town hall. Connect those. I'll add a couple of reroute nodes by double clicking on the line here. It's a little prettier. Cool, so that should be fine. We'll compile and save that. And we'll go back into ground tile BP. Alright, so back here in ground tile BP, we're going to add another variable. And this one will be called, I'm going to call it temp building. And this one will also be a building base, but instead of it being a class reference, it'll be an object reference. Okay, so then what we're going to do is, assuming that we are building, so this is true, assuming that nothing is built on this tile, false, drag that off, spawn actor from class. The class will be building selected. And then we're going to take this and we're going to make this the temp building. So we're going to set temp building, this building. And from this return value, we're going to get the static mesh. Okay, down here at the bottom, get static mesh. Then we're going to take this and we're going to get the materials of this static mesh. And from temp building, we're going to do a for each. And for each of these materials, so we'll plug in the array in this array section. We're going to set the material to be a different material. But first, we've got to create the material. So under the content drawer section, you want to go to grid here, wherever it's really. You can right click and then we'll add a material. I'll call this like rebuild mat something. You can double click that to open it up. And first things first, I'm going to change blend mode from opaque, and I'm going to change that to be translucent. Then on this base color, you can pull that out. A constant 3 vector, which is basically otherwise known as RGB. And if you double click that, You can pick a color. I'm gonna do something like yellowy type color, but feel free to do whatever it is that you want to. And then on this opacity, I'm gonna do a constant. Turn that opacity down to something like 0.5. Save. There we go. Something like that's fine. Save it. And once that's saved, go back into the ground tile blueprint. So how I'm going to tackle this is from the static mesh. We're going to pull this out, and we're going to set material. The array index here will plug into the element index, and then the loop body plugs into arrow over here, and the material we're going to select is the pre-build made. And so what this is going to do is it's going to check to see if we're building. Every time we hover over any sort of ground tile, it'll check to see if we're building. If we are building, it'll check to see if that tile is built on. If that tile is not built on, it will spawn an actor, and that actor being the building selected variable, which gets assigned in the build UI. From there, it'll assign temp building to be this actor that we just created, and then we're going to change all of the materials on the static mesh of that actor that we just spawned to be this pre-build material we made. Oh, we are missing the transform from this particular spawn actor. So one thing we can do is just right click and do get actor location. And we'll add 2 to the above tile so that it's not lighting. And then we'll drag that and put that into transform. You should be able to compile and save now. And then if you want to test it out, you can click play. And we're going to hit B, use our town hall. When I tested it out there, it looks like our build menu popped up a whole bunch of different times. So I'm going to change from being on triggered on this build menu to do when complete. See if that makes a difference. One thing I forgot in the CB controller section, you're gonna have to enable mouse over events. So enable that, and then test play again. Click your build UI, select town hall. Notice it'll start spawning town halls, but with material. But we need them to tile anyway. All we have to do for this is on end cursor. Get the temp building and or destroy actor. So now when we test it only one town hall build. Alright, looks like we're getting some errors here. I'm guessing it's because this isn't existing. So from here on the event actor end cursor over, what we're going to do is before we destroy the actor, we're going to check to see if it's so we'll do valid, a white question mark here, and is valid, then we'll destroy the actor. Okay, didn't get the error message that time, so that seems to be a little better. I'm gonna select all of these right here, and I'm gonna just drag them down a little bit. I'm gonna right click up here. I'm gonna do event after on clicked. I'm gonna come from here. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do the same thing. So on these two, we're gonna make sure that we are building and that this ground tile is not built on. Assuming that's the case, then we're going to destroy. Guess we'll, it's like we did here. Check to make sure that temp building is valid. Is valid, we'll destroy the actor. Then we will spawn this exact spawn selected. Actor location +2. We don't have to change the materials or anything on this one. All we have to do now is kind of just reset our ground tiles. So what first we're going to do is set built on for this tile to be true, but now has a building on it. Then we're going to get all actors of class, all of our ground tile blueprints, and for each of them, set building false for building it. Then we are going to set building connected set and we're going to set that to be nothing at all. Reroute node just to make it prettier. Cool. And so now, if we compile and save that, go back in and we test it out, should be able to click our build menu, click town hall, select a tile we want, and then click. A critical mistake here, we actually on the event on clicked, we want to make sure built on is false before we go in. And then we also on this is not valid. When it's not valid, we're just going to skip over the destroy actor and go straight to the spawn. Like that. Nodes to make it prettier. Compile, save that. Now when we go in, should be able to click our build menu, click town hall, find a tile, and click. Just like that, you've got our town hall, although it's backwards. Let's change that rotation. So on spawn transform here, let's break that link. Probably ought to do that. We're gonna split the struct pin here, make location, plug into that, and then on the rotation on the Z axis, we're gonna change that to 180 and compile and save that. Now, when we click play, go in and click B to open our build menu and click town hall, find a tile and click on it. And now we have our town hall looking good, facing in the right direction. And, you know, we can, as of right now, spawn as many of these as we want. Not working on some of the tiles, which look into why that's happening. So on this spawn actor, we're gonna pull that out and do set collision enabled box. This guy. Plug that in, be right between the temp set building and for each loop here, and we're gonna put no collision on the set collision enabled compile and save that, see if that fixes our problem. I think what's happening is, and that's pulling up, it can't get to the ground tile below. Yep. Now it seems to be much cleaner. And you can, build as many of these as you want. It's kind of boring because it's just one building, but. Alright, so there you have it. Episode 2 now complete. You should at this point have a game that when you open it up, it will automatically spawn all of the ground tiles that you want, and you now have the ability to actually build the town hall that we made in the previous episode. If you'd like to keep up with this tutorial, please subscribe to the channel, and if you learned something, please like the video as well. In the next episode, we'll make a couple of other buildings that we can actually place in our world as well, so be sure to check that one out when it's available. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.